All right, I think we should be good to get started here. um, First and foremost, thank you everybody for joining today's doForms Day session on barcode scanning. My name is Anthony Trainee. I'll be doing the presentation today. With me, I have Nick Bauer running the keyboards. So Nick's job is to basically check the Q&A box that you'll see on the bottom of your Zoom screen. At any point throughout the presentation, feel free to ask any questions, or if you have any comments or anything like that, feel free to put it into the Q&A section of the bottom. If you hover your mouse on the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a Q&A option at the bottom that will pop up the screen for you to ask a question. And we have allotted the last 5 or 10 minutes of the presentation or so to field questions at that point as well. So at the end of the meeting, we'll go through all the questions. I'll read them out loud to everybody, answer them. And if there's any last minute questions at that point, feel free to put in any questions you may have. So let's go ahead and get started. First slide that I have up here, customer driven technology. So what this basically means is that doForms, all of our functionality and new features, we're constantly adding new capabilities and new features to the application, and majority of those new features are customer driven. So what we mean by that is, we like to interact with our customers. We like to interact and actually get to know their processes. And, a lot of the times, we have all the functionality necessary to create an application for them, but there are occasional times that we might be missing a piece of functionality or some sort of, customization capability, anything like that. So all of our, majority of our new features are all customer requirements, right? So if we see that customers are really looking for a certain type of capability or a certain type of customization in our application, we listen to that and we, add that into the product. And nothing is more true in this scenario than barcode scanning. So in the last year or two, we have really added in a lot of different functionalities for barcode scanning in particular. We have partnered with some of the industry leading vendors for these scanning devices. We also have partnered with a number of resellers of these pieces of hardware. So we've really kind of integrated ourselves into the barcode scanning space and have added in enough functionality, or pretty much all the functionality that you'll see on any one of these devices. So we take what the device is capable of and basically allow that capability to be inside of doForms as well. So today we're going to kind of just go over some of the scanning features at a high level here. Again, if you see anything in this presentation that you're interested in or you want to learn more about, just pick up the phone and call us. We'll absolutely answer any questions you have. We'll even help you get set up in creating these applications using these features. So the different capabilities we're going to go over today, we're going to talk about form navigation, checking for duplicate capability, dynamically adding rows to a table capability, matching a template, data lookups, parsing capabilities, barcode image capabilities, and auto number generation capabilities. So let's go ahead here and let's start with navigation. So with navigation, we're not talking about like, human navigation, card navigation, we're talking about navigation inside of your form. So what we mean by navigation is we have added in settings into the doForms scanning capabilities called jump to if or jump after scan. So what these settings will allow you to do is enable you to, after you have successfully scanned something, to jump to another field, jump to another area in your form, jump to a new page. It's basically customizable, but it allows you to pick another question or another page or something like that. And after we've recognized that you've hit your scan successfully, it can automatically jump you there. This is also, the jump after scan setting is also great for inside of a table where, it basically allows you to continuously scan down a table. A lot of times if I had a table like structure with, row after row and I had to go in and scan a bunch of things, it would kind of slow me down if I had to scan, take my finger, click on the next row, scan, take my finger, click on the next row and scan. So the jump after scan setting basically says when you're inside of a container, whether that be a grid or a table, it can automatically jump you down to the next row and basically enabling you to continuously scan. So instead of me having to scan, click my finger to move down, I scan, the application knows that I've just scanned something, jumps me down to the next row. So I can basically go scan without needing to stop. So it allows you to kind of speed up the process. You don't need to, physically navigate yourself to the next scan area. So whether you're in a container or outside of a container, you can jump to individual fields, or you can just jump down to the next row in your table-like structure. This is very useful because, like I said, it's really going to slow down your speed of scanning these things, especially if you're just kind of going through, you're not validating anything. You really just want to scan in a bunch of things. It can be very time consuming to, have to scan and kind of reposition yourself. So with these capabilities, it just allows you to continuously navigate down, continuously navigate to another question, so you could effectively set up your application to be that you don't actually have to physically touch anything on the screen. You can automatically be started off in your first scan field as soon as the form opens up. You can do a scan, jumps you to the next scan, jumps you to the next scan. You basically complete all of your scans and just click the submit button to submit it in. So next we have check for duplicates. So this is a very useful setting that we've added in. So this setting applies to not only individual fields, right? So if I had one text box or one and text box 2, I could check for duplicates in those. But it also applies to the table-like container structures. So, a good example of this would be, a lot of times our customers have, scanning needs where they need to go in and scan a bunch of barcodes into our system. And basically, like I was talking about in the last slide, they basically just want to scan. But a lot of the times these barcodes might be very close to other barcodes, and you're not basically able to, get which one you want, so what the check for duplicates allows you to do is, number one, it's going to allow you to enable an error message if somebody scans the same thing twice. So in other words, imagine you're inside of a table and you're going down and you're scanning. Maybe after you did your scan, you went to lunch and then you came back and you weren't sure if you left off on this box or this box, right? With the check for duplicate setting on, if I went ahead and scanned the same information, it's basically going to return an error message to me and notify me that I've already scanned that item. So this is great because you don't want double entries of a particular barcode. You don't want, double or sometimes triple, especially if you're doing things out of order. It's just a nice tool that basically a nice setting that you can enable that basically anytime somebody goes in and hits the same barcode twice, it basically stops them. There is an ability to turn off that error message in situations where, you want to allow a duplicate, so maybe you just want to notify the user, but not necessarily block them from putting in that as a duplicate, so you can turn that error message off. And basically what happens is, and instead of the error message preventing you from submitting your form, it just kind of pops up as a pop-up dialog message and says, hey, that was a duplicate that you just scanned. But it allows the value to stay in there and allows you to continuously scanning without kind of stopping you. So you do have control on whether or not it allows duplicates to be entered or if it just simply notifies you that you've scanned another duplicate. Like I said, this can be the check for duplicates can also be done on individual fields. So if you have scan 1, scan 2, a lot of these, what we call Pokeyoke apps, where you're just trying to verify, you might have 2 barcodes that are the same value, and you just want to make sure that you're matching them up correctly, and you're going to scan 1, scan 2, and make sure they're the same. Again, you can kind of use that functionality in here and make sure that they are the same, or if they're, and just get the pop-up that says, hey, these are the same, these are good. Or if you don't get the message, that lets you know that you've scanned something incorrectly because nothing popped up. So next we have dynamically add rows. So dynamically add rows is a relatively new feature for us. And the reason that it came about is, we had a lot of customer feedback on our table controls. Basically the way that it used to be is you would have to set a number of rows and you couldn't do more than that number of rows. So for example, if I set my table to be 20 rows long, after I got to my 20th row, if I needed more rows, there wasn't really anything you could do at that point. You'd have to, complete another submission. So we decided to add in a setting on the table called dynamically add rows. What this setting effectively does is you set the number of rows that the user sees to begin with, right? So let's take the same example and say that I choose 20. But instead of me getting to the 20th row and that being the end of it, as soon as I enter a value into that 20th row, the table is going to automatically add another row for me. So every time I fill out the last row, it just basically keeps adding another row, adding another row, adding another row for me. So, and it's unlimited. So, this is great for people who, they know they have to do a bunch of scans today, but they don't know today I might do 50 scans, tomorrow I might do 200 scans. So without this setting kind of enabled, you'd have to set your application to, allow for up to 200 scans, even if you were only doing 20 or 50. So what the dynamic add row setting allows you to do is you can start off with 5 rows, and if you do 5 scans, great. If you do 20 scans, doesn't matter. It basically just keeps adding another row after row after row for you, kind of limitless until you go down and finish all of your scans. So it's a great tool, especially if you're not sure how many scans you're going to do that day, or if your scans vary from day to day. If you're doing a lot more on another day and you're not really sure, am I going to get 10 scans or 100 scans today? This setting is really great for that. Basically allows you to, customize how long it goes. And, you can use this setting in combination with the jump settings from the last screen, to basically continuously scan down. So like we were mentioning before, where, you can have the jump to jump down to another row. You can use that in combination with this. And once you get to your last row, not only does it add the row for you, but it also jumps you down to that next row. So basically it's dynamically adding another row for you, and it's dynamically jumping you down, so you don't have to physically click your way down onto another row again. So 2 very great features. Like I said, the dynamically add row does not have a limit on it, but we recently just came out with a capability where you can set a max amount, right? So let's say you have a scenario where you don't know if you're going to be doing 10 or 50 today, but it'll never be more than 200, right? So you can set a max limit of dynamically added rows if that's something you're interested as well. So maybe you don't want to allow for more than 200 scans, but you can scan anywhere from 1 to 200 times. You can basically go in there and set a dynamically add row limit. Again, that's a new feature that's going to be coming out in our 7.0 release that's coming out in a couple of days, maybe next week, middle of next week or so. So keep an eye out for that. Next slide we have here is match template. So what we're talking about when we say match template is, there's kind of the traditional barcode scanning where you're just kind of scanning what's on the barcode, and they're different barcodes and you're really just putting in the value. There's also organizations who have specific barcode values formatted a specific way. So think about an inventory system that might have the part number, but the barcode itself all of them might start with PT number dash and then the actual number, right? So when you're going through, what the match template allows you to do is you can basically customize and tell the application the format that you're expecting when you scan. And if that template is not found, it gives you an error message. So in my example of, let's say all my parts are PT, the number sign, a dash, and then whatever the number is, I can set up my application to basically check that it starts with PT number sign dash. And if it doesn't, it returns an error message and says, hey, you scanned something that's not the correct format. So this is great for organizations who have a number of different barcodes all on the same label, and they're very close to each other. And if you're not right up on it, you might hit one on accident. This is a great way to kind of make sure that you are scanning the particular barcode that you're looking for. So you can set up sections where, your part number scan might be expecting, PT number dash, maybe, the next field is expecting 4 numbers and then five text characters. So you do have some customization, whether it be a specific format, you're looking for PT number dash. It might just be you're looking for, the first two characters to be numbers, and you can just specify, hey, the first two characters of the scan need to be numeric. And you can basically customize, different sections of your form to only accept those templates. So as you're going through, if you accidentally scan something that's not the correct number for there, it kind of blocks you and says, hey, we're expecting format PT number dash, this was INV number dash, and it kind of alerts you that you kind of scanned the wrong barcode. And like I said, I've seen a number of different organizations who, they might have on a particular box or a particular pallet, there might be a label about this big and it's got 6 different barcodes on it for all different numbers and, reference IDs and whatever it may be. And, sometimes you're scanning from a bit of a distance, so if they're close enough, you might accidentally scan one of the other barcodes. This match template capability kind of takes away the risk in there. And if you do accidentally scan something that you were not supposed to, can return a nice error message for you and say, hey, this is not the right barcode. It didn't match the format that we were expecting. Next slide here is we have data lookups. So, if you guys are doForms customers, you've probably been pretty familiar with data lookups. But what we're talking about here is specific to barcode scanning. So what you're able to do is you can associate a data lookup to a barcode scan. And so what I mean by that is, let's say I had an Excel document that had all of the particular barcodes of all of the items that I had. And along with that, it had the item number, the description, the weight, and the size, right? What I can basically set up is I can import that Excel document into doForms as a data lookup, or I can use it as a form-based data lookup, which basically you build the form in doForms and import it into your view data section. Either way, works the same. But once that data is in doForms, I can combine that with a barcode scan. So when I actually go into my scan field and scan something, it can check that file. And if it finds whatever I scanned, it can destinate the rest of my questions for me. So for example, let's say I had part number or item number 1234. I can have a form set up that when I come in on the scan field that I have for item number, I scan the barcode, it puts in item 1234. And with that scan, it checks the file, it finds that, and it sees that, okay, the description is, it's a hammer, the weight is 2 pounds, and the size is medium. And it can automatically fill those fields for me. So basically, you can do that with, any set of information. It basically just allows you to reference your scan value column in your Excel document and then set some destination fields. So after you do your scan, it can basically populate all the information associated to it. So what some of our organizations have done, with like asset management systems, for example, they go up to an asset, they scan it, and that scan might include, the last time it was serviced, who the last person to check that asset out of inventory was, and as well as the asset information. So, instead of needing to go to your computer to kind of look up a particular asset's information, you could just have your scanner go and walk right up to it, scan it, and it would return all that information because we have a file associated that has all that data for us to basically automatically destinate. So one of the another use case that we have is for a merchandising company who basically went around in stores and they would scan the particular products that were on the shelves. So what they wanted to do is they had a file that basically included all of the products, all the shelf barcode IDs that they're going to scan. And what needs to happen is it's going to check that file and it's going to see if the price has changed from the last time that they've gone and went around and barcode scanned these. So basically they had a file that included the barcode scan information, all the product descriptions, and then they had a column in there that was called price change and with values of yes or no. So what they had set up is a table-like structure where the first column is basically they're going to go in there and they're going to scan their barcode. After they scan that barcode, it's going to check that file. If it finds that barcode in that file, it's going to destinate, all the information about it, along with if there's been a price change or not. And if the price change value was equal to yes, it automatically printed out a new label for them. So they're effectively walking into the store, scanning the barcode. If there's a new price associated to it, the application is smart enough to know that. They have a mobile printer with them. They peel off the new sticker, they take off the old barcode price, and they put on the new one. So same concept applies, pretty much for anything. You can pretty much load data into doForms associated to any type of barcode scan you're going to do, assets, inventory, merchandising opportunities, anything like that. You pretty much can upload any set of data. And when you do your scan, you can have that scan check against that data, pre-fill some information for you, pull back some information for you, whatever it may be. So very powerful tool. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily need to be used for inputs as well. It could be more for, auditing capabilities where maybe you're just going around and you're scanning everything and kind of seeing the last time it was updated or the last time it was serviced, something like that. So you can kind of use this functionality along with, actual input forms, or you're actually inputting some information in the doForms, or you can kind of use it as more of an audit tool where you're kind of just scanning stuff, viewing the information on your mobile screen and kind of going from there. Next capability we have here is for parsing. So everybody in the barcodes, scanning space knows what parsing is, but just in case you don't, parsing is basically the functionality that allows you to take individual pieces of a barcode value and send them to individual fields, right? So a lot of times, organizations will have a barcode or a QR code, and when you scan it, there's just a single value on it. You wouldn't use parsing in that situation because there's just, one value. So the QR code might hold, let's say, my name in it. And when I scan my badge, it just brings back my name, right? But a lot of organizations have, compounded barcodes where basically that barcode includes a whole bunch of information, not just the name, right? So imagine I had a badge. When I scanned it, instead of it just being the name, maybe it had the name, my employee ID, my date of hire, and my, hair color, let's say. So, and maybe those are separated by dashes, maybe they're separated by commas, by pipe symbols, everybody's kind of configuration is different. So within doForms, we kind of have two settings to account for those longer barcodes. The first setting is called parsing by number of characters. So basically what that means is, let's say your barcodes are 10 characters long. The first 4 characters is your ID, and the next 4 characters, or the next 6 characters are your name. You can basically tell a text field or a barcode field inside of doForms after you scan to take the first X amount of characters, place that in field 1, the next set of X characters, place that in field 2, and so on and so forth. So instead of getting a long value that is, a piece of information, a dash, a piece of information, a dash, you can basically do the scan and have those pieces of information parsed out into individual fields. So think about like an inventory item, right? When I scan it, that barcode might include the ID, might include the description, might include the weight, and might include the color, right? All in one barcode value. So I can say, if I know that they're going to be the first, 5 characters and then the next 6 characters, or, whatever their configuration may be, I can basically go in there, input a number of characters to parse and what field to parse those into. So I would have a barcode scan field. I'd have an individual field for item ID. I'd have an individual field for description. I'd have an individual field for weight, and I'd have an individual field for any other, piece of information that might have been in that tag. When I actually go ahead and do my scan, you have some options there. So you can continue to see the full string if you would like to. We also have a setting called action button only, which after you do your scan, it basically doesn't show you the full value. It just shows you the parsed values. So the first option, like I said, is to parse by a set number of characters. So that capability only works. You would only want to use that functionality if your barcodes are all the same format. Because if you have some barcodes that are 10 characters long and then some barcodes that are 20 characters long, your configuration is going to be different because the 20 character one's going to have more information in it, and which I'll get to in a second on how we handle those. But, for this example, for this, parse by number of characters, you want to make sure that your barcodes are all the same, length in characters and also the same format, so that way you can just continuously read the information correctly. The second option that we have is parsing by what we call delimiters. So delimiter is just a fancy way of saying the character that's in between each piece of information, right? So usually it's a dash, it's a comma, it's a space, it's a pipe symbol. Everybody's different. Everybody kind of customizes their own labels, but depending on what it is, we basically have the ability to go in there to set a start, a middle, and an end delimiter. Right. So let's say your barcode value, when you scan it, it returns a pipe symbol, your name, dash, and then an address with a pipe symbol at the end. In the configuration, we would set the start up to be a pipe symbol. We would set the middle delimiter to be a dash, and we would set the end delimiter to be a pipe symbol. So that configuration is basically telling it, if I have pipe, name, dash, email, pipe symbol, it's basically going to know that when I go ahead and do my scan, when it finds the first pipe symbol, it knows it's starting its string. every time it sees a dash, it's going to know that that's another piece of information. And same concept as with the number of characters, you can set destination fields in here. So in this example, I would have an individual field for name and an individual field for email. So when I scan my barcode, it's going to return the pipe Anthony Trainee a training at doforms.com pipe. But when I set up my parsing and I set up my configuration correctly, it's going to know how to parse out those individual name and email values and place them into individual fields for me. Same concept here. You can keep a field in there if you'd like to see the full string. So basically you can keep a field in there that after you do the scan, it shows you the full string and does the parsing for you. Or if you only want to see the information parsed, you would use our action button only setting there and basically be able to do whatever you need. So yeah, two options with the parsing, delimiters or number of characters. Either way, both of these options pretty much account for any and all of the different barcodes that we have out there. We have also recently added in functionality where maybe your barcode might have some Unicode characters that aren't actual values, that might be symbols or things like that. We've added in capabilities to still accept the scan, but kind of parse out the actual data fields in there. So if you're one of those organizations who has barcodes that have as well as just regular text and numeric values in them, also have some Unicode characters and some things like that, don't be worried about that. We can support that as well. So next we have Barcode Image. So Barcode Image allows you to do a couple of different things, right? So the first is, very simply, you're basically able to, inside of doForms, have a barcode field. And instead of when you scan it, instead of it showing the scanned value, you can actually have a QR code or linear barcode, whatever it may be, show up in the form itself. Now, the reason that that's powerful is, I'll give you an example of COVID testing sites, right? So we had done a program or an application for a COVID site that basically needed a way to allow people to sign up and kind of had windows of signups. And what they would like to do is, when somebody signs up, doForms emails them a barcode that includes all of their information in it. And so when they roll up to get their COVID test and they do the scan, their scanners are set up to parse their information for them automatically. And basically the user has a nice barcode image there, so they can just kind of scan it. They don't have to sit there and type in their name and all of that. So what the barcode image allowed us to do is inside of the form, we had, basically created a unique barcode that was the person who registers name, their age, their address, and their email address. And so what's great about that is after they filled out their registration form, in the background, we had basically, hit a bunch of information. And after they submitted it, they received a PDF that, thanked them for signing up. And in that PDF, we unhid a barcode image on our barcode field. It's a setting that we enable. And basically, instead of them seeing, the string of information that's in the barcode, it actually presents them with a barcoded image on the PDF. They were then able to take that PDF, and when they roll up to the COVID site, instead of the user with the scanner needing to type everything in, because we set up our parsing correctly, as soon as the person rolls up, they bring up their PDF with the barcode on it, they scan it, it parses all of the information off of the barcode for them, then they're able to go and get their test, kind of speeding up the workflow of people kind of coming through. So we kind of took away the need for people to actually physically type in their information, because we were able to send them a barcode that had all their information in it. So aside from being able to create that as well, inside of the form, it also may be useful. So a lot of times we're forwarding from one user to another user, so inside of the actual, aside from just it being on the PDF, you can also have it inside of your live application, right? So let's say you wanted to generate a new barcode and you inputted in a bunch of different information. You could actually get a preview of what that barcode is going to look like, and it's actually scannable right on your application. If you had another device and you wanted to check it before you printed it or before you submitted it or whatever it may be, you can actually get a nice barcode image inside of the application screen as well. So like I was saying with manager sign-offs or things like that, you might need to punch this in and send it over to somebody to say, hey, I scanned it, it looks good, it works. You could basically fill in your information, have a barcode image in there, forward it to the manager to scan it and approve it, and submit that information in, you're good to go. So basically the barcode image capability, really just kind of allows you to do some cool stuff where, if you don't want to see just the actual text that's on the barcode, if you actually want to see the image in your application, can absolutely do that just by using on the barcode tool. There's a setting in there that says show the image. There's also some configuration options in there that allow you to basically show just the image or to show the scan value along with the image. So you can actually see the image of it and actually the string of what's in it if you would like to. Again, all customizable there. Auto number generation. So specifically to barcode scanning, this is very useful. At a high level, what the auto number widget allows us to do is, there's a couple of different options there. We have where you can set your own auto number incrementation. So, start at 1,000, 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, so on and so forth. We have a unique value option, which basically gives you I think it's a 12 or 15 character long string of basically the date and time down to the millisecond, so it can never be repeated. Basically just generates a random number for you. And then we also have recently added in an option called generated, which allows you to actually go over the air, go over the internet, and retrieve the next number, in a particular order. So the reason that we're kind of talking about this in combination with barcode scanning is, let's say you wanted to, create an inventory system and you didn't have numbers associated to any of your parts. Maybe you just have the parts. There is no system. You don't have anything yet. Maybe what you'd want to do is basically have doForms generate those barcode numbers for you. So how you would do that is you basically use an auto number tool as your part number, your inventory number, whatever you wanted to call it. You pick one of the options there, and instead of you needing to come up with every single barcode and custom building every single barcode, you can let doForms do the heavy lifting. We'll create the auto number for you and basically allow you to generate a unique number for each piece of inventory. This can also be like we were talking about with the COVID registration, where if you want to give people, a ticket number, for lack of a better description, you can use the auto number generation capability to, create a unique number, create a number in a sequence, all of which can be barcode, added onto a barcode and then eventually scanned down the line. So the auto number capability, especially the new one with the generation option, we actually did a system for a company who was printing out pallet labels, but they were scanning a bunch of information and actually generating the labels inside of doForms, right? But these pallets didn't have existing numbers on them. They were just simple pallets, and they needed a system that could generate a unique number every time they printed out a new label. So we actually went in there and created, using the generated setting, which goes over the internet and checks for the next number. And the reason that was powerful is because they had a lot of operators going at the same time. So they had a lot of people who could potentially be, putting stickers on different pallets, but at the same time. And what they wanted to avoid was, if I started off and got an auto number, if somebody else started, within a second or 2 seconds of me, they wanted to make sure that both of us got different numbers. So basically what the generated allowed them to do is it goes over the internet and grabs the next available number. And then it knows that if the next person comes in a second, 2 seconds later, it knows that that previous number has already been used and gives them the next one. So it kind of eliminates the risk of getting two of the same barcode numbers on two different pallets. This capability, because it's going over the internet and checking, basically makes it impossible for two of the same numbers to be put onto those pallets. So there's really, no risk of having, duplicate pallet numbers or anything like that. The other two options that are not generated actually trigger, so the one triggers actually when you submit your form. So in a situation like that, depending on what you're doing, you probably wouldn't want to use the submission where it sets the number on the submission. You'd want to use the generation, so that way when it comes in, you basically go over the internet, get the next one right there, and don't have to worry about it. So I believe that that's all that we have in the slide here. So, just a couple of other use cases that I just kind of want to bring up very quickly with barcode scanning. So, we also have done systems, for example, like a mailroom application. So along with the barcode scanning and parsing capabilities, one other capability that we have in there is in our if then else capability, we've added in options like length, contains, things like that. So we did a mailroom application for a customer who basically wanted a system where when packages were dropped off, they wanted to scan them into the system. When they did the scan, depending on what the number was, they wanted to automatically detect who the sender was. Was it Amazon, FedEx, whatever it may be, USPS. And the way that we did that is, all of Amazon and all of USPS, they all follow the same barcode structure, right? So we set up conditions that said, if it starts with an A, it's Amazon. If its length is 16 characters, it's FedEx, and so on and so forth. So basically all the end user had to do was come in, scan the package. It automatically identified who sent the package, automatically date and time stamped the time of receiving. And then when they had a separate application, the person, walking around actually delivering the mail, they basically just captured a signature and basically had the person sign off for the package. And it basically, they would scan the person's badge they were dropping it off to, have them sign off and say, I've received my package, all of which was documented in the system, and basically allowed them to kind of track when packages came in and out. And before that, packages were getting lost. People were saying they never received packages when the company's saying they sent them. So it basically gave them a nice, neat system to basically go in, barcode scan everything that's coming in, as well as barcode scan who they're giving it to. So the person actually physically needed to be there to receive the package. They could just scan the barcode tag there and have all that information added onto the form for them. So, pretty much anything you can think of with the barcode scanning, like I said, we listen to our customers, and a lot of customer feedback has come through over the last year or so on barcode scanning stuff. So, we've added in a lot of functionality, and we'll continue to add more and more functionality as, additional features become available or new devices come out. Like I said, we have partnered with some of the, best industry leading hardware vendors here. So we kind of stay up to date on the newest technology and make sure we support everything that customers need. So I'm going to leave the last couple of minutes here open for some questions. Nick Bauer, I have here. Nick, we have any questions?
Yeah, I have a few.
Okay.
This is from the beginning, I believe, when we were talking about how we're customer driven.
Mm-hmm.
Says, if I have a new functionality request, how would I go about getting it added?
Sure. So the question was, if you have a new functionality request, how do you go about getting it added? The simple answer is we have an email address called feedback@doforms.com. That email address gets sent around to our development team. And basically that's the address that we use for customers requesting new features. So depending on the feature itself, we're always open to new capabilities. The first thing that we're going to figure out is, is there an ability for us to support that, right? Is there some sort of integration need, or is it something we can do on our side? We would need to evaluate and make sure that what you're asking for is actually possible. Assuming it is, we'll kind of get the details from you. We will work with you one-on-one. Myself or somebody from the development team will end up reaching out to you. And just making sure that whatever it is that we're designing around that feature, meets the functionality that you're looking for. And that's not to say that, we're going to do every single feature that everybody sends in. Typically we kind of base it on, is there a set of customers asking for the same things? If you ask us to add a function that is like highly specific to your organization, we might still be able to do it for you, but if it's not going to benefit some of our other customers, it might just go a little bit later than some of the more priority items. So the easiest way is to send an email to feedback@doforms.com. You can also always call up, ask for myself. My name is Anthony Trainee. I'm the director of e-commerce solutions here at doForms. You can absolutely call up, ask for me, and send me your requests. My email address is also atrainee@doforms.com. It's on the newsletter email that you guys received. Feel free to shoot me an email with anything like that as well. So you can go directly to me. The feedback email goes to all the development guys. So either myself or somebody from the development team will reach out to you if we need to get more functionality.
We have two more. We have
two more questions, guys. Go ahead, Nick.
Can you customize the check for duplicates error message, or I guess in that case, the match template error message?
So the check for duplicates, you cannot, it just simply alerts you and says that there's a duplicate value. The match template, it's customizable, but not the way you think. In other words, the error message is basically going to return and say that you're expecting this format, whatever format it is you had punched in there, and that it was not, the correct format. So like, in other words, I can't go in there and write a custom message, but the message itself will be customized to say, effectively, we were expecting this format, this does not meet this format, in a red error message there. But again, if that's something that you'd like to see added, feel free to send an email to feedback@doforms.com for the ability to do a custom error message on there.
All right, and then
Last question.
What are the differences between Excel and form-based lookups?
So the difference is between Excel and form-based lookups are Excel is obviously Excel documents. So the form-based lookups are actual forms that you create in doForms. So instead of using a file, you actually create a form and publish a form in doForms. And then what you're able to do is, if you go to your lookup data section and build forms, you'll notice that there's an option. It says upload or use form. The use form option basically just uses the data that's in view data as the dropdown information. So the benefit to that is, if I have an Excel document and I have 100 rows in it, and then tomorrow I add 50, I have to then come back into the system and re-update that Excel document. Whereas a form-based lookup, because it's already inside of doForms, it has an update automatically capability. So if I went into my doForms form and imported those extra 50 rows, my mobile devices and everything, they don't need to do anything. Everything gets updated, the lookup gets updated automatically and automatically pushed out to all the devices. So it's just a way for you to basically, think about it like a database in doForms, where you can make, edits, additions, deletes right in doForms, and all of those edits and everything that you've done as deletes automatically get reflected out to your mobile devices. Whereas the Excel side is a little bit more manual. You have to maintain the Excel document and then keep updating the Excel document. Another drawback is, if I add a column into my Excel document, it's going to require me to do a new import because it's broken the structure. If I add a new field in my form-based lookup, I can just add a new field and that new field gets added in for me. So it's a little bit more automated, and it really just kind of gives you a centralized area to manage all of your information for a particular dropdown when you're using the form-based lookups. And all you need to do to create that is just simply create a form, publish it, go to your lookup data and go to add a new one. And you'll see the two options: upload, which you would upload a document to Excel CSV, or use form, and it'll have you select the form that you want to use.
That's it.
Any other questions? No. Okay, well, thank you guys very much for coming out to this session on barcode scanning. We have a couple more sessions going on today. Feel free to go to our website, register for some of the later sessions today. Like we said, if anybody is interested in any of these features, wants some help getting set up on an application, anything like that, give us a call, shoot us an email. We'll absolutely help you out. Thank you guys very much for coming out. We'll see you in a later time.